Welcome everyone back to Wrestling with Politics. My name is Joel Perez, and today we're going to be breaking down the vice presidential debate between Democratic candidate Tim Walz and Republican candidate J.D. Vance. Now, this was a very interesting debate for many reasons. Number one, J.D. Vance came out as a surprise in this debate. I was wondering myself, why did Trump choose this guy, this bearded white guy? He doesn't really bring anything to the table. Well, we found out during this VP debate exactly what J.D. Vance brings to the table, because J.D. Vance, he came to this debate well prepared. He showed that he has his college degree, his fancy college degree from Yale. He showed where that came from here tonight, because J.D. Vance, he seemed to know the facts, and he seemed to break down Trumpism better than Donald Trump himself, which is a surprising thing. And Tim Walz, who you've been hearing a lot of great things about from Democratic propagandists on Twitter, like Kyle Kalinske of Secular Talk, who says that Tim Walz brought many great things to Minnesota, like free school lunch and free public college. Well, Tim Walz wasn't defending his own record in this debate. He was defending the record of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, the record that's brought us the greatest inflation that we've ever seen. And that didn't go so well for Tim Walz. There were many moments in this debate where Tim Walz just couldn't seem to explain his own record. Like, for example, when you get into Tim Walz trying to explain whether he's been to China or not, the moderator had a hard time even getting him to answer a question straight.
Governor Walz, you said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service. I joined the National Guard at 17, worked on family farms, and then I used the GI Bill to become a teacher, passionate about it, a young teacher. My first year out, I got the opportunity in the summer of '89 to travel to China. 35 years ago, be able to do that. I came back home and then started a program to take young people there. We would take basketball teams, we would take baseball teams, we would take dancers, and we would go back and forth to China. The issue for that was to try and learn. Now look, my community knows who I am. They saw where I was at. Look, I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect, and I'm a knucklehead at times, but it's always been about that.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this, so I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Thank you, Governor.
And as you see in that clip, Tim Walz can't seem to answer the question straight when it comes to whether or not he was in the Tiananmen Square protest in China. And I don't even know what Tim Walz's motivations are here when it comes to this, but he can't seem to reveal anything, and he can't seem to get the answer straight. So which one is it? Did you misspeak, or were you there during the protest? And why can't he answer the question straight? It's shady here. And it's shady because it turns out Walz was lying. Minnesota Public Radio said the evidence shows that Walz, then a 25-year-old teacher, was still in Nebraska in 1989. So no, he was not at the Tiananmen Square protest in China. But one thing is for sure, and it's something that I'm going to keep repeating on all of these videos, both of these candidates will continue to serve the top 1%. And unfortunately, it looks like both of these candidates are going to continue to serve the interests of a foreign nation before they will serve the interests of the country that they're running to represent, the United States. Because both of these candidates, the very first question in this debate from the moderators, who are also bought and sold, CBS News, what a disgraceful job you did. But the very first question was whether or not we're going to be sending more missiles to Israel. And both of these candidates wholeheartedly licked the boots and kissed the ass of Israel.
Israel's ability to be able to defend itself is absolutely fundamental.
It is up to Israel what they think they need to do to keep their country safe, and we should support our allies wherever they are when they're fighting the bad guys. I think that's the right approach to take with the Israel question.
And this is exactly why we must put an end to both of these corporate parties. We must find an alternative. For me, this election season, that alternative is going to be Jill Stein. We can't trust anything that both of these candidates have to say. But regardless, we're going to get into this debate anyways because we have to debunk the propaganda ourselves. And that's exactly what we're here to do on Wrestling with Politics.
Senator Vance, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, well, look, Tim, first of all, it's really rich for Democratic leaders to say that Donald Trump is a unique threat to democracy when he peacefully gave over power on January the 20th, as we have done for 250 years in this country. We are going to shake hands after this debate and after this election. And of course, I hope that we win, and I think we're going to win. But if Tim Walz is the next vice president, he'll have my prayers, he'll have my best wishes, and he'll have my help whenever he wants it. But we have to remember that for years in this country, Democrats protested the results of elections. Hillary Clinton in 2016 said that Donald Trump had the election stolen by Vladimir Putin because the Russians bought like $500,000 worth of Facebook ads. This has been going on for a long time. And if we want to say that we need to respect the results of the election, I'm on board. But if we want to say, as Tim Walz is saying, that this is just a problem that Republicans have had, I don't buy that.
Governor.
January 6th was not Facebook ads. And I think a revisionist history on this. Look, I don't understand how we got to this point. But the issue was that happened. Donald Trump can do it. And all of us say there's no place for this. It has massive repercussions. This idea that there's censorship to stop people from threatening to kill someone, threatening to do something, that's not censorship. Censorship is book banning. We've seen that. We've seen that brought up. I just think for everyone tonight, and I'm going to thank Senator Vance. I think this is the conversation they want to hear. And I think there's a lot of agreement. But this is one that we are miles apart on. This was a threat to our democracy in a way that we had not seen. And it manifested itself because of Donald Trump's inability to say. He is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
It's a damning non-answer for you to not talk about censorship. Obviously, Donald Trump and I think that there were problems in 2020. We've talked about it. I'm happy to talk about it further. But you guys attack us for not believing in democracy. The most sacred right under the United States democracy is the First Amendment. You yourself have said there's no First Amendment right to misinformation. Kamala Harris wants to use the power of government and big tech to silence people from speaking their minds. That is a threat to democracy that will long outlive this present political moment. I would like Democrats and Republicans to both reject censorship. Let's persuade one another. Let's argue about ideas, and then let's come together afterwards.
You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That's the test. That's the Supreme Court test.
Tim, fire in a crowded theater. You guys wanted to kick people off of Facebook for saying that toddlers shouldn't wear masks.
Senator, the governor does have the floor.
Fire in a crowded theater. That is criticizing the policies of the government, which is the right of every American.
Senator, the governor does have.
And in this part of the debate, we truly begin to see how backwards the morals of the Democratic Party have truly become. Because Tim Walz, in this part of the debate, openly advocates for censorship in the name of hate speech. And my question here is, who gets to decide what's hate speech and what's not? Who gets to decide what's censorship and what's not? Most of the time, it ends up being these large transnational corporations and powerful elites and powerful politicians like Tim Walz, actually. And you know what? It makes perfect sense that Tim Walz is coming out against the First Amendment of the Constitution. But what surprises me is that it's J.D. Vance coming out in this debate and calling him out on it. And it's almost surprising how the two major parties have completely flipped on this issue. And it goes to show how the Democratic Party and Tim Walz, he tried to make the case for them being the lesser of two evils because of the fact that Trump wouldn't accept the results of the 2020 election when it's been pretty clear that the Democrats themselves They didn't accept the results of the 2016 election. They tried to tamper with Donald Trump's presidential campaign as much as they possibly could, and they tried to tamper with his actual presidency. They tried to impeach the guy twice, and they actually succeeded. So how is that not tampering right there? And let's not forget that the Democrats don't actually give a damn about democracy, because if they did, they would have told you that the guy who's been president for the past 4 years is a demented Joe Biden, and that this man hasn't had the capacity to actually run this country for the past 4 years. But instead, they've been lying to you about it, and they actually kept in the demented Joe Biden. They lied to him through to get 14 million votes, and Democratic voters still seem to be voting for this. So the Democratic Party is just fine with pushing whatever paid stooge that they have, and that paid stooge, it happens to be Kamala Harris. And they managed to get Kamala Harris in there without getting a single person to vote for her. So this argument that the Democrats give a damn about democracy, it's a joke. And Tim Walz, in this debate, quite frankly, he got handled surprisingly by J.D. Vance. And, you know, it just goes to show how weak the argument of the Democratic Party becomes when you realize that for everything that they accuse the Republicans of being guilty of, they're just as guilty themselves. There's only 1 month left until this election, and what the Democratic Party doesn't want you to find out is that what Kamala Harris and Tim Walz truly believe in is more war, more censorship, and less freedom. That's why they only have $750 for the victims of a hurricane, but just last week, they had $2 billion to send for a war in Ukraine. So we have to get the word out, and we have to let people know that whatever decision they're going to make this November, make sure it's not Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And if you want to make sure to stop the evil of the Democratic Party, because they are the greater evil, if you want to stop the greater evil with me, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Wrestling with Politics. Thank you for watching this video.